Right now, though, Saturday was what's known as garbage bag day for the Winnipeg Jets. It's when the players clean out their lockers, meet with the media for the final time. You may recall after the Jets were ousted from the Stanley Cup playoffs by Las Vegas last Thursday, Coach Rick Bowness told reporters in a 1-minute post-game media interview he was, quote, disgusted by the team's lack of effort and not having any pushback, end quote. On Saturday, several players pushed back themselves, led by former captain Blake Wheeler, and said he didn't like how Bowness blasted them.
I didn't agree with how he handled himself after that game. I know that our performance in Game 5 wasn't up to a standard that we would have liked it to have been, and there's disappointment in that. The preparation and what we do in between games is nothing short of being all in on trying to win that game, and unfortunately we didn't show up in a manner that we would have liked to.
Now, Coach Bowness wasn't scheduled to speak Saturday, but to address those comments, he said this.
I criticize myself for the choice of words. The clear message is one that I will never accept that kind of an effort in a game like that.
Heading into the offseason, there's a lot of questions around the team, such as what players are going to be moved, who doesn't want to be here, and will management look at rebuilding or just retooling? We've got Hellebuyck, Wheeler, Scheifele, and Dubois all up on contracts coming up. Murat is covers the Winnipeg Jets for The Athletic and is here to talk about, well, I'm going to call it the mess, Murat. What about you?
Good morning.
Hi.
It's an interesting time in Winnipeg Jets land, to be sure. One of the things that came out of the weekend, if you're going to use the word mess, is that when Kevin Cheveldayoff spoke yesterday, Winnipeg is notoriously kind of a tight ship. They don't let a lot of information out. So when you mention those players who all have uncertain futures, whether they need a new contract this summer like Pierre-Luc Dubois, whether they're eligible to be completely free next summer like Wheeler, Scheifele, Hellebuyck, and probably Dubois, depending on what he does this summer, Kevin Cheveldayoff isn't sharing what his plans are, what his vision is. I'm sure he has them. But I think fans came out of, what you call a mess, listening to those press conferences and a little bit of conflict, hoping that they would hear a clear-cut vision and message for what the future might look like. And Winnipeg, being a little bit reticent to share that sort of thing, didn't really assuage any of those concerns yesterday. So it is a bit of a troubling time to be a Jets fan.
How unusual is it to see this kind of sort of back and forth in the locker room in that way, like Bowness coming out and then on garbage bag day to have the players say, hey, we didn't appreciate what you said about us, even though the game was lousy. What are your thoughts?
I was in Vegas for Rick Bowness's press conference, and even before he talked about being so disappointed and disgusted, before the press conference was officially underway, he said, okay, this is going to be short and sweet. And you could tell that he was boiling over with emotion. And after he said those words, after he criticized the team and talked about a lack of pushback going back to January, February, it really did look to be cathartic for him. Like maybe he was holding on to some of this stuff for a long time. And maybe that's why he let his emotions get the better of him. And then the way that, each Winnipeg Jet who was asked that question on Saturday, like you played the clip from Blake Wheeler, suggested or shared that they felt, hey, I wish he would have said that to us first. That is a conflict at its most basic sense. They disagreed on how that moment was handled. Bowness backs off on the word disgusted, but says, again, that the effort isn't what it needed to be. And you know what, Marcy? I think that that's okay. I think it is completely okay for a coach to look at a game where his players underwhelmed him and say that he didn't appreciate such a thing. And I think that it's okay for the players to say, I wish that he would have said that to us directly. And we know Bowness went in the second intermission, and he was pretty harsh with his critique of the game so far. He's been fairly outspoken to us and to his players as well over the months. But I just think the intensity of calling things disgusted or what have you got to some of those players. They clearly all spoke to each other about how they felt about it, because all of them said, I wish that he would have said it to us first. I think that this is conflict, and I think it's okay to have conflict, and they need to address it, absolutely, now that it's named. But I think that that's part of what needed to have happened at their exit meetings over the course of the weekend.
What do you do, though, moving forward? I mean, do heads roll? Because in whose head, then? Because in some ways, the Jets had moments of, like, super greatness, whether it was early in the season or game one of this series, and then they fall apart. So where do you even begin to understand, where the responsibility is?
Yeah, I think it depends on sort of how you set your scope. And I don't think, anybody needs to be fired or let go or traded because of that exchange at the end of the playoffs. I think it's okay to have conflict, and even conflict that gets public. You heard Blake Wheeler say, well, now we've got to answer these questions about it. And that's a real thing that he has to deal with because his coach was so critical. Mm-hmm. Again, I think that that's okay. But if you want to evaluate Winnipeg's loss to Vegas in the playoffs, then, a more calculated approach to it might be to point to injuries like Josh Morrissey, Mark Scheifele, Nikolai Ehlers throughout that series, Cole Perfetti as well. If you want to evaluate Winnipeg's lack of playoff success, where it's qualified for the last 4 of 6 playoffs and has won 3 playoff rounds since 2011, 2012, you might look to management for the team. If you believe Bowness's words about the lack of pushback as well, then there may be some players amongst that leadership group that you'd like to move on from. But a lot of that stuff is information that is, kept very close within the organization in terms of who needs to move.
Well, and Cheveldayoff in that 40-minute address said very little besides confirming that Coach Bowness will continue to be in that position. But I want to talk about what some of the players said before you go here, because Hellebuyck and Kyle Connor said they do not want to rebuild. Hellebuyck, I think it was, said, he wants a Stanley Cup. Do you see a rebuild or stay the course? Like, what do you do with that?
Yeah, I mean, and to the players' defense, they're asked, hey, what are your thoughts on a rebuild? And they're, of course, going to say, no, absolutely not, especially somebody like Connor Hellebuyck, who has been so clear to us for the last several years that it's cup or bust for him. It's winning, and that's his only priority wherever it happens. So I think that's it makes sense for players in their prime to be speaking that way. Kevin Cheveldayoff was asked about his appetite for a rebuild yesterday, because it's been reported, and I've believed as well, that Winnipeg has no interest in that they really want to qualify for the playoffs at least. Whatever happens from there, great. Just give yourself a chance to have a chance at the Cup. Also, the gate revenue that comes with that. But when Cheveldayoff was asked, he said he's not going to sit there and make any bold proclamations about what the future holds. And I thought that was interesting, because I expected him to say an unequivocal no. But I think that what it also reflects, other than the possibility he's just trying to keep his cards close to his chest on this one, is that he really doesn't know for sure what Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to decide this summer. Is he going to sign long-term or not? I don't think so, but we don't know that. Mark Scheifele, Blake Wheeler, Connor Hellebuyck, all UFAs, unrestricted free agents next summer. They have a lot of control over their future. And I think until Winnipeg knows exactly what those futures are, whether they have extensions in place or trades for players of quality, he's just not going to be sure.
So last 30 seconds, I mean, to some criticism, the Jets launched their season ticket campaign last month. But what does this weekend do to that effort as far as convincing fans here to plunk down their hard-earned dollars?
I don't think it does very good for it, because I think fans want to believe in a story that they can get excited about. Why did things go wrong? Why will things get better? And, the Jets are good at many things, but explaining those, that was missed very clearly, I think.
Thanks a lot, Murat.
Thank you.
Murat Atesh covers the Winnipeg Jets for The Athletic. If you want to weigh in about where you're spending your entertainment dollars, let us know.
Thank you for watching the CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. For the latest breaking news and top stories, download the CBC News app.